I can still hear the echo of her laugh. It wasn't just laughter, it was a sharp, gleaming thing, like a shard of glass hidden in your bedsheets. It cut, and everyone at the table laughed along with her, not knowing I was bleeding underneath. We were at Emilio's, this dim-lit, overpriced Italian place Olivia insisted on for our monthly couples dinner with her friends. White tablecloths, candles flickering like nervous glances, and everyone dressed just polished enough to pretend their marriages were still exciting. I never liked these nights, but Olivia loved them. She liked to put on a show. That night, she outdid herself. Wine had been flowing, and the conversation had drifted into increasingly personal waters. Jeremy was bragging about his new home gym. Elise made some offhand joke about how equipment doesn't make the man. Everyone laughed. Then Olivia, already 2 glasses deep into a Pinot that always made her loose-tongued, leaned into the table, glanced sideways at me, and said it. Mark's quiet in bed. It's like having sex with a statue. The table exploded. Not gasps, laughter. Hysterical, full-bodied laughter. Like it was the funniest damn thing they'd heard all night. I smiled. I even laughed along. That trained kind of chuckle you give at a work function when the boss makes a joke that shouldn't land. I had to. What else could I do? But something split in me. It wasn't just the joke. It was the look on her face when she said it. Playful, cruel, smug. Like it was some truth she'd been waiting to spill for years. The kind of thing you don't just think up in the moment. No, that was something she'd said in her head a dozen times, probably to friends when I wasn't around. Maybe even to someone else. My eyes drifted across the table. That's when I caught Amber looking at me, not laughing. Her glass hovered in front of her lips, untouched. Her eyes locked with mine, and in that second, everything slowed. I couldn't read her expression entirely. There was a flicker of something, shame, maybe, recognition. Like she knew that laugh had cost me more than a bruise to the ego. Like she knew it wasn't just a joke. And maybe she knew what Olivia had buried over the years. Maybe she remembered, like I did, the way things used to feel. We all played our parts. The next topic came up. Olivia reached for my hand like nothing had happened, giving it a gentle squeeze as if that erased the wound. Amber forced a smile and looked away. And me? I chewed through the rest of my dinner and pretended everything was fine. But later, in the silence of our car on the ride home, with Olivia humming some mindless tune under her breath, I kept hearing her words on a loop. It's like having sex with a statue. I don't know what it was that stung the most. The cruelty of it, the intimacy of the audience, or the fact that, once, she used to look at me like I was the only man in the world. Not anymore. We met in college. She was loud and confident. I was quiet and observant. I liked that about us. She filled rooms, while I lingered in the corners, watching her light things up. I never needed to be the center. I liked being hers. Back then, she used to pull me into closets at parties, whispering how I made her ache just by touching her. I wasn't always quiet. I just became that way, maybe slowly, over time. Maybe because every time I tried to initiate, she was too tired, too busy, or on her phone. And eventually, I stopped trying. I became the statue she said I was. But it wasn't always like that. That's what hurt. After dinner, back home, Olivia kicked off her heels, unzipped her dress, and stood in the doorway of our bathroom brushing her teeth like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just mocked the most private part of our lives in front of a dozen people. I stood in the hallway watching her, silent. "You're awfully quiet," she said, catching my reflection in the mirror. "Guess I'm just staying in character," I muttered. She paused. For a second, her eyes flicked up, like maybe she realized the line she crossed. But instead, she smirked. "Oh, come on, it was a joke. Lighten up." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her when she stopped being the woman who used to trace my jawline with her fingers, whispering how safe she felt in my arms. I wanted to tell her that I wasn't a statue. I was just waiting to be seen again. But I said nothing. Later that night, as I lay awake in the dark, her body turned away from me, I thought of Amber's eyes. The way she didn't laugh. The way she looked at me like she still remembered something. And I wondered if maybe I wasn't the only one who missed who I used to be. The drive home after that dinner was a symphony of silence. Only the hum of the tires filled the space between us. Olivia scrolled her phone, her face illuminated by the blue light of the screen, a faint smile tugging at her lips as she typed something. Probably in their group chat, reliving her little joke. She hadn't looked at me once since we left the restaurant. Outside, The city lights streaked by in yellow ribbons, melting into the dark countryside. Inside, my hands tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I thought if I focused on the road long enough, the words would stop echoing. Quiet in bed. Statue. Quiet in bed. You're really going to pout all night, huh? She said finally, her voice light, teasing. I kept my eyes forward. Not pouting. Oh, please, she scoffed. It was just a joke, Mark. You know how we all tease each other. God, you're so sensitive sometimes. The word sensitive hit harder than the joke itself. I'd learned over the years that whenever Olivia wanted to dismiss my feelings, she labeled them as weakness. I used to fight back. Now I just swallowed it down like bitter medicine. When we pulled into the driveway, she sighed dramatically, like I was the one exhausting her. The motion light flicked on as she stepped out of the car. Try not to overthink everything tonight, okay? She said. We actually had a good time. Don't ruin it. I didn't answer. She went inside, humming under her breath, the same tune she always used when she wanted to end a conversation on her terms. Inside the house, everything looked the same. Our framed photos smiling down from the walls, the faint scent of her lavender candle still lingering in the air. But something inside me had shifted. Maybe it had been shifting for a while, and that night just made it impossible to ignore. I sat on the edge of the couch for a long time, staring at the fireplace we hadn't lit in months. There was a time we used to curl up in front of it, her head resting against my chest, whispering things that made me feel like I was her home. Somewhere along the way, the fire had gone out, literally and otherwise. When I finally went upstairs, she was already in bed, asleep on her side of the mattress, her phone face down on the nightstand. I lay beside her, eyes on the ceiling, replaying every word from that dinner, every laugh. And in that dark, quiet room, I realized something that chilled me more than her cruelty. I wasn't angry. I was numb. That scared me more than rage ever could. It was past midnight when my phone buzzed on the dresser. I reached for it without thinking, careful not to wake her. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't expected to see. Amber. My pulse kicked up. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Then I opened the message. You didn't deserve that. 4 words. Simple but heavy. I stared at them for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to unload everything, to tell her how humiliated I felt, how it wasn't just a joke, but a knife to the ribs. But another part of me, the cautious part that had learned to bottle things up, typed nothing at all. I locked the phone, rolled over, and closed my eyes. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. Amber and I had known each other for years. She'd been Olivia's best friend since college, the one person I actually liked in her social circle. She used to come over for dinner when we were newly married, always with a bottle of red wine and stories that made Olivia laugh until she cried. Back then, she and I got along easily, too easily maybe. I remembered one night, years ago, when Olivia had fallen asleep on the couch after too much wine. Amber and I stayed up talking, the conversation drifting from movies to music to dreams we'd abandoned. There had been a moment, a small, electric one, when she'd brush my hand while reaching for her glass. Neither of us pulled away right away. It was nothing, and yet it was everything. We never spoke about it again. Until now, I hadn't even let myself think about it. I turned my phone back on and read her message again. You didn't deserve that. The words felt like a hand on my chest, grounding me. Someone had seen it. Someone had noticed. I typed back. Thanks. Then, after a pause that felt too long, guess I'm used to it. Her reply came almost immediately. You shouldn't be. I lay there staring at that message until the screen dimmed. Olivia shifted beside me, murmuring something in her sleep, her hand brushing my shoulder. It felt foreign, like a stranger's touch. I didn't sleep that night. My mind replayed everything. Her laughter, Amber's eyes, the way my chest had tightened when she texted. I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything, that it was just sympathy. But deep down, I knew what it really was. It was recognition. The next morning, the routine unfolded like clockwork. Olivia made her smoothie, barely glancing my way. You okay now? She asked, voice sugar-coated with performative concern. Sure, I said. Fine. Good. She smiled faintly, scrolling through her phone again. Amber said she might stop by this weekend. You cool with that? My stomach dropped. Amber. Yeah, she said casually. She's been weirdly quiet lately, so I told her to come hang out. Maybe we'll do a wine night or something. I managed to keep my voice even. Sure, whatever you want. Olivia kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. See? That's the man I married, she said with a grin before walking out the door. I watched her leave, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I just felt ready. Because that look Amber gave me across the dinner table, the one full of guilt and understanding, wasn't going away. And something told me that what started as a single text was about to become something neither of us could take back. A week passed before I saw Amber again. Olivia had left that morning for a work trip to Chicago. 3 days at a marketing conference, she'd said, though I didn't bother pretending to believe her anymore. Her suitcase was packed the night before, but her phone had never left her hand. She kissed me goodbye, said, "Don't forget to water the plants," and drove off with that breezy confidence of someone who knew I wouldn't question a thing. When the sound of her car faded down the street, the house felt unnaturally still. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your chest, reminding you how empty everything had become. I should have enjoyed the quiet, but instead it echoed, bouncing around the rooms like a memory that wouldn't die. By noon, I'd gone through 2 cups of coffee and half-heartedly cleaned the kitchen, though there was nothing to clean. I even turned on the TV just for background noise, but it only made the house feel lonelier. That's when the knock came. 3 soft taps, hesitant, almost polite. I opened the door, and there she was. Amber stood on the porch, a coffee tray in her hands, sunlight catching in her chestnut hair. She wore a loose gray sweater that slid slightly off one shoulder, casual jeans, no makeup except maybe a trace of mascara. For a moment, I just stared. She smiled nervously. "Hey," she said. "I was driving by and thought you could use caffeine." I managed a small laugh. "You must be psychic." She handed me one of the cups, her fingers brushing mine. "Olivia mentioned she was out of town. I figured you'd be bored out of your mind." "Something like that," I said, stepping aside. "You want to come in?" Amber hesitated only a second before nodding. Inside, the house smelled faintly of coffee and the cedar candle Olivia loved. Amber took it all in with quiet eyes. She'd been here before, years ago, but this time felt different. There was no Olivia's laughter filling the room, no music, no performance. Just us. We sat on the porch instead of the living room. It was bright outside, a warm breeze stirring the early summer air. She set her coffee on the railing and crossed her legs, looking out at the yard. "Do you ever just stop pretending?" she asked softly. Her question caught me off guard. "Pretending what?" "That everything's fine," she said. "That it doesn't hurt." I let out a slow breath. "Every day?" She nodded, as if she'd expected that answer. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The wind rustled the trees, and I found myself studying the way the sunlight hit her hair, the faint curve of a smile that wasn't really a smile at all. "She shouldn't have said that," Amber said finally, glancing at me. "At dinner, I mean." I gave a small shrug. "It's fine." "It's not fine, Mark." Her voice was firmer now. I wanted to say something, but she trailed off, looking down at her hands. I didn't want to make it worse. Her guilt was written all over her. I wanted to tell her she didn't need to carry that weight, that it wasn't her responsibility to defend me. But part of me wished she had. "She's always had a cruel streak," I said quietly. "I just didn't notice how sharp it was until lately." Amber looked up at me then, her gaze steady. "You've changed," she said. "How so?" "You used to smile more. You used to look alive." I huffed out a laugh. Guess statues don't smile much. That earned the faintest grin from her, but it faded quickly. "You don't deserve to be treated like that." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. There was a tremor in her voice, a mix of anger and sadness that didn't belong to sympathy alone. "Amber," I said carefully, "why are you really here?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Honestly, I don't know. I couldn't stop thinking about that night. About the look on your face. I guess I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're not." The words hung between us, heavy and unflinching. For a moment, all I could do was stare at her, at the woman who seemed to see right through me. Then she reached out, her hand brushing mine. So lightly it could have been an accident, but it wasn't. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Instead, I looked at her hand resting against mine and felt something shift inside me, something buried for years pushing to the surface. A memory of the way she used to laugh with me, the warmth in her eyes when we talked about everything and nothing. It was like the ghost of a life I'd forgotten I wanted. She didn't move her hand. Neither did I. I shouldn't have come, she whispered. You probably shouldn't have, I said, my voice lower than I meant it to be. But I'm glad you did. Her eyes flicked up to mine. There was a pulse of tension in the air, soft, dangerous, undeniable. The kind of moment that teeters between right and wrong, where one breath too close could change everything. She looked away first. I should go, she said, her tone trembling. You can stay a bit longer, I said before I could stop myself. Amber smiled faintly, her lips curling in that way I remembered too well. You always were terrible at letting people go. I leaned back against the porch railing, watching her take a slow sip of coffee. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair across her face, and without thinking, I reached out and brushed it away. My fingertips grazed her cheek, and she froze, eyes locking on mine again. Mark, she murmured, a warning and an invitation all at once. I pulled my hand back, swallowing hard. Sorry. Reflex. Her lips parted like she might say something, but then she exhaled instead, long and slow. You don't need to apologize for wanting to be seen, she said softly. That line hit deeper than she could have known. When she finally stood to leave, the sun was starting to dip behind the trees. Thanks for the coffee, I said, though it felt like we'd shared something much heavier than caffeine. Amber paused at the door, glancing back at me. She doesn't see you anymore, Mark, she said quietly. But I do. Then she was gone. I stood there on the porch long after her car disappeared down the street, staring at the place where she'd been, my pulse still unsteady. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that it was just two friends catching up, comforting each other in a moment of weakness. But when night fell and the house sank back into silence, I couldn't stop replaying the feel of her hand on mine, the way her eyes lingered. I didn't ask her to come over. I didn't plan it. But I hadn't asked her to leave, either. It started with thunder. One of those deep, rolling cracks that vibrated the floorboards and made the windows shiver in their frames. The kind of storm that swallowed the whole sky and made you feel small inside your own house. I was halfway through a cold dinner, leftover pasta, barely touched, when the power snapped off with a loud pop that made me jump. The room fell into sudden blackness, broken only by the gray glow of the sky outside. Perfect, I muttered, setting down my fork. The storm was already bad. Now it had swallowed the lights, the air conditioning, the hum of the refrigerator. Silence settled in, thick and absolute. I felt the quiet in my bones. I lit a few candles from the drawer in the hallway. Their flickering glow cast long shadows across the walls. I thought maybe I'd just ride it out, go to bed early. I didn't expect the knock at the door. 3 quick raps, familiar, but hesitant. When I opened it, Amber stood there holding a flashlight in one hand and a bottle of red wine in the other. Her hoodie was damp at the shoulders from the rain, and her hair clung to the curve of her neck. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Your neighborhood lose power too? She asked. Yeah, I said, stepping back. Come in before you get soaked. She shook off the rain as she stepped inside, laughing softly. I was going stir-crazy in my place. Then I thought, maybe you were too. I wasn't until now. I joked, and she gave me a look, playful, knowing. We lit more candles together, placing them around the living room until the house glowed with soft, golden light. The storm outside raged louder, wind howling against the siding, but inside felt warm. Close. Amber poured the wine and handed me a glass, her fingers brushing mine again, longer this time. Neither of us mentioned it. We sat on the floor near the coffee table, legs folded, the candlelight painting her skin in amber and gold. It felt like being inside a memory, something half-remembered and dangerous. She took a sip, then glanced at me. You remember that night? Years ago, when Olivia fell asleep on the couch. I looked at her, heartbeat already picking up. Yeah. We sat right here, she said. You had on that terrible sweater. The one with the pine trees. I love that sweater. She laughed. It was awful, but you made it work. There was a pause. Not awkward, just heavy. I never forgot that night, she said finally. Her voice had changed. Softer. More fragile. I lied. No, you didn't, she said. You never do. You just pretend better than most people. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just Olivia's friend. She hadn't been for a long time. She was something else entirely now, something I'd buried to stay faithful, to stay good. But the soil was thin, and it didn't take much to dig it back up. She doesn't love you, Amber said quietly. Not the way you need. That's still her ring on my finger, I replied, holding up my hand. But it's not her name you whisper when you dream. That stopped me. She looked away, ashamed of herself. Or maybe not. Maybe it was relief. Finally saying what had been inside her for years. I should have said something to defuse the moment. Made a joke. Redirected. But I didn't. She used to, I said instead. Love me, I mean. Back when I made her laugh for the right reasons. And now I'm just the man who waters her plants and pays half the mortgage. Amber's hand found mine again, but this time she didn't pretend it was by accident. I see you, Mark, she said. I always have. The storm cracked again, and somewhere down the street, something heavy slammed, maybe a trash can. But in that room, time stood still. I'm not trying to be the rebound, she said. I don't want to be the excuse you use to blow things up. But I remember what it felt like. When you looked at me like I mattered. You still do, I whispered. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but something else. Want. Fear. Honesty. And then I kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't polite. It wasn't the careful, mechanical affection Olivia doled out like medication. It was heat. Desperation. Years of silence breaking all at once. Her mouth opened against mine like she'd been waiting for it. Her hands slid into my hair, tugging, and I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her into my lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Her sweater came off in a blur of candlelight, and my hands found her skin, warm and soft, and so alive it made me dizzy. I buried my face in her neck, breathing her in, memorizing the shape of her again. Her breath caught when my lips found the hollow of her throat, and she whispered my name like a secret. She wasn't Olivia, and I wasn't a statue. She moved against me with need, not obligation. Her fingers traced every scar I thought no one could see. Every touch was a confession, every kiss an apology for years of pretending. We didn't make love like it was new. We did it like it was something we'd both been starved of, like we knew it was a sin, and we needed it anyway. When it was over, we lay there on the floor, tangled in each other, the storm outside finally beginning to fade. Her head rested on my chest, and I could feel her heartbeat slowly returning to normal. She didn't speak. Neither did I. There were no promises made. No, what now, whispered in the dark. Just her fingers lightly tracing circles on my chest. Like maybe if she kept moving, this moment wouldn't end. But it would. We both knew it. The power stayed out. The candles burned low. And somewhere in that room, the part of me that Olivia buried years ago finally came back to life. Amber was gone by the time the sun broke through the storm clouds. I woke up alone on the living room floor. The candles melted down to stubs, the air still thick with the scent of rain and something else, something raw and real. My shirt was draped over the back of the couch. The wine bottle was half empty on the table, her lipstick still on the rim of one of the glasses. But she was gone. No note, no text, not even a missed call, just absence. I sat up slowly, muscles aching from the hard floor and the weight of what had happened. My mind tried to categorize it, to label it as a mistake, a moment of weakness. But I couldn't lie to myself that easily anymore. What happened between us wasn't impulsive. It was inevitable. I cleaned the living room in silence, blowing out the last flickering candle, folding the blanket she'd wrapped around her after everything. I ran my hand across the spot where she'd fallen asleep against me, remembering how her breath had slowed, her fingers still tangled with mine. And then I heard Olivia's voice in my head. So quiet in bed. It's like making love to a statue. Only now, it didn't echo the same way. Now it made me laugh. Not loudly, not cruelly, just a soft, bitter chuckle at how wrong she was. How utterly wrong. Because last night, I wasn't a statue. I was flesh. I was fire. Amber had reminded me of that. But as the day wore on, guilt began to creep in like a fog. Not guilt over what I'd done. No, that felt almost justified. But guilt that I felt so free. That the silence in the house no longer felt like loneliness, but relief. That night, Olivia came home. The front door opened around 7, and I could hear her suitcase rolling against the tile before she even said anything. Mark, she called out, cheerful, practiced. I'm home. I stepped out of the kitchen, wiping my hands on a towel. Hey. She looked flawless, as always. Hair curled just enough, makeup still fresh despite the flight. She set her bag by the stairs and came over to kiss my cheek. Her lips were warm, impersonal. The kind of kiss you give your cousin at a family reunion. "Miss me?" she said. "Or just the peace and quiet?" I smiled like it was a real question. "The plants missed you." She laughed and breezed past me into the living room. As she unpacked her laptop and chattered about the grueling conference, I watched her with new eyes. Not angry, not bitter, just detached. Her words slid past me like background music. She talked about hotel food, some keynote speaker who made a sexist joke, and a colleague named Marcus who apparently didn't understand personal space. I nodded in the right places. I smiled when she expected it. I even made a sarcastic comment about Marcus that made her laugh. But something between us had shifted. She didn't notice. Later, in bed, she climbed in beside me with a tired sigh, scrolling through her phone while her leg brushed mine under the covers. "I'm exhausted," she murmured. "Long trip. She didn't look up. Any excitement while I was gone? I paused, my eyes on the ceiling. Not really. Just storms. She hummed in acknowledgement, thumb flicking across the screen. I turned off the lamp. Good night. Night. She didn't reach for me. Didn't even glance my way. And yet, I found I didn't mind. In the days that followed, the house settled into its usual rhythm. Olivia filled the space with her routines, Pilates, work calls, late-night Netflix binges she never invited me to join. She was there, but only in the way wallpaper is, present, familiar, but unnoticed. And in that quiet, Amber lingered. Not physically. She hadn't messaged me since the night she left, but in every moment I closed my eyes, I felt her fingertips, her breath, her honesty. I'd walk past the wine aisle at the grocery store and wonder if she still drank the red blends with the black labels. I'd hear a song in the car, something sultry, low, and remember the way her voice had broken when she said, "She doesn't see you anymore, Mark." And every night, lying beside Olivia's back-turned silence, I felt the weight of everything we never said. The kind of silence that screamed. One evening, about a week after Olivia's return, we went out to dinner, just the two of us, for the first time in months. She picked the place. Somewhere trendy, loud, full of clinking glasses and people performing happiness like a play they'd rehearsed for years. She wore a dress that hugged her like it wanted to escape her body. Heads turned when she walked in. They always did. I used to feel proud of that. Now, I just watched it happen, disconnected. We ordered. We made small talk. She laughed a lot, loud, sharp laughter that drew attention like perfume. And somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "You're different lately," she said, voice sweet and suspicious. "How so?" "I don't know." She tilted her head. "You're calm. Quieter." I smiled. I thought I was always quiet. She narrowed her eyes, studying me. "Not like this. It's like you're not even mad anymore." "I'm not." She leaned back slowly. "That's what scares me." Her words hung there, heavy and strange. We didn't talk about it again. Not on the ride home. Not in bed. But she watched me more closely after that, like she was trying to find whatever it was she'd lost in me. Or maybe she was realizing she'd never really seen me in the first place. One morning, as I made coffee, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, something she hadn't done in years. "What if we took a trip?" she murmured against my neck. "Just the two of us. Somewhere warm." I didn't turn around. "Why?" "Because I miss us." The words tasted fake coming from her mouth, like she'd read them in a magazine. But I played along. "I'll think about it." She kissed my shoulder and left for yoga. As the door closed, I stared into my coffee cup, watching the swirl of cream disappear into the black. And I realized, for the first time in our marriage, I felt utterly alone and completely okay with it. Amber had left without a word, but she'd taken something with her. My need for Olivia's approval. My willingness to be small. And now, in the silence between us, I could hear something new. Myself. Olivia loved throwing parties. Even now, after everything that had unraveled between us, she still knew how to command a room. She thrived on the spotlight, fed off the subtle hierarchy of conversation and clinking wine glasses. And tonight, she had the perfect excuse, Amber's birthday. It felt surreal when she brought it up a few days earlier. "We're doing something special for Amber," she said, flipping through her phone. "I made reservations at River and Vine, just a few of us. You'll come, right?" The question wasn't really a question. I hesitated. "You're throwing her a dinner?" She looked up, raising an eyebrow. Of course. She's my best friend. Why wouldn't I? I opened my mouth, then shut it. There was no version of the truth I could deliver that wouldn't set fire to the room. So I nodded. Sure. Sounds good. Now, sitting at a table for 8 in the center of the restaurant's softly lit private room, I felt like I was watching a play from backstage. Every laugh, every compliment, every toast, it all felt rehearsed. Even Olivia, radiant in a burgundy dress that hugged every curve, seemed to be performing. Her smiles were just a little too wide. Her gestures, too precise. Amber sat across from me. She'd arrived late, claiming traffic, though her eyes had already given her away. She'd seen my name on the group text. She knew I'd be here. And when she walked in, wearing that black dress with the simple neckline and silver chain around her neck, our eyes met. We both paused. A blink. A beat. Then she smiled. Just enough to be polite. Just enough to keep the secret. She sat beside Olivia, and the night unfolded like a slow spiral. I watched Amber's hands as she sipped her drink. I watched the way she avoided looking directly at me. But in her stillness, I could feel the same weight I was carrying. Guilt. Restraint. The silence of everything unspoken between us. Olivia, of course, was in rare form. You know what Amber's turning today? She asked, clinking her spoon against a wine glass to grab everyone's attention. 35, and still refusing to settle down. Laughter rippled around the table. Amber smiled weakly. Olivia leaned in, eyes shining with mischief. But maybe that's a good thing. Because let's be honest, most of the married ones are just faking it. Right, babe? She turned to me, grinning. I smiled back. Some of us are just good at pretending. The table chuckled. Amber didn't. Wine flowed, stories were shared, and slowly the buzz of conversation lifted the atmosphere. But I saw the shift. Amber growing stiffer, quieter. She wasn't laughing like she usually did. Her smile faltered more with each passing jab Olivia threw, some aimed at me, some not. And then Olivia struck again. It was dessert. The server had just brought out a slice of cake, the candles already melted halfway by the time Amber made a wish. I just hope your wish wasn't for someone like Mark, Olivia joked, swirling her wine. He never made me scream, that's for sure. It was the second time she'd made that joke. Only this time, I didn't laugh. Neither did Amber. The table froze. A few chuckles, nervous, uncertain, petered out into silence. Amber set her wine down carefully. Her fingers trembled, just enough for me to notice. She looked at Olivia. Then she looked at me. And then she said it. That's not true for everyone. The room went dead quiet. Olivia blinked. What? Amber leaned forward, her voice calm but shaking at the edges. You act like he's a joke, but maybe the problem isn't him. Olivia's smile didn't quite falter, but it thinned, sharp as a blade. Amber, are you drunk? No, Amber said, standing. Her eyes flashed. I'm tired. Everyone watched her, wide-eyed. The clink of a fork dropping on a plate somewhere. The tension was a living thing. Olivia stared at her for a long beat, calculating. What's that supposed to mean? Amber didn't answer. She just picked up her clutch, nodded at the table, and walked out. I didn't move. I couldn't. Olivia turned slowly to face me. What the hell was that? She asked, voice low. I met her eyes. I think you know. And for the first time, I saw something unexpected in Olivia's face. Not fury, not disdain, but doubt. The rest of the night blurred. I barely remember paying the check, offering hollow goodbyes, walking through the parking lot under flickering lights. Olivia didn't speak on the drive home. She stared out the window, her fingers tapping against her thigh like a silent metronome. We got inside. She dropped her purse on the floor and rounded on me. What did she mean, Mark? I shrugged out of my coat. Maybe you should stop humiliating me in public, and you wouldn't have to find out like that. She blinked, stunned. You think I humiliated you? I think you've been doing it for years. Her lips parted. No words came. I stepped past her, toward the stairs. You're not the only one who gets tired, Olivia, I said. Some of us just show it differently. And then I left her standing there. Later that night, I lay in bed alone. She didn't come upstairs. I heard a glass break in the kitchen, then silence. The house felt different, tense, waiting, like it knew what was coming. Amber's words repeated in my head. That's not true for everyone. I hadn't asked her to defend me, but part of me was grateful she did. Because for once, someone had spoken the truth out loud. And that truth was going to break everything. The morning after Amber's birthday dinner, The silence in the house was no longer passive. It was a loaded thing. Pressurized. Olivia avoided my eyes at breakfast. She stirred her yogurt like it was a task she hated. The air between us crackled with words unsaid. She hadn't asked again what Amber meant. She didn't have to. We both knew. By mid-afternoon, I found myself in the garage, the one place that still felt like mine. I'd built a small workshop out there. Nothing fancy, just some tools, a bench, the smell of sawdust and oil. It was where I retreated when I needed to remember who I was before I became someone's disappointment. I was sanding down a piece of oak when I heard the door creak open. Amber stepped inside. She looked like hell. Her hair was in a knot that hadn't been brushed out. Sunglasses pushed up into her hair, and the flush in her cheeks told me she'd barely slept. I didn't say anything at first. Just set the sander down and wiped my hands on a rag. I shouldn't have said it, she blurted out. At the dinner. You did. I know, she said. And I meant it. But I shouldn't have said it. Not there. Not like that. I studied her. You regret it? She exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. No. I just hate the fallout. I nodded. Yeah. It's going to be bad. There was a long pause. The kind of pause where everything hangs in the air, daring you to breathe first. Amber walked farther in, arms crossed tight over her chest. Olivia texted me. One sentence. I hope it was worth it. That's it. I swallowed hard. Was it? She didn't answer right away. Then, it wasn't revenge, Mark. You know that, right? I do. It wasn't about getting even with her or taking something from you. I didn't plan to fall into this. Neither did I. Amber looked around the workshop like she needed to see something solid. She's going to hate me forever. She already kind of does, I said quietly. That made her smile, barely. You think she knows? She doesn't need proof. She knows something happened. She saw it in your eyes. Amber took a step closer. And you? What about me? What do you see in my eyes? I hesitated, but only for a second. Guilt. Sadness. Want. She nodded, lips pressed tight. That's about right. Then she stepped right up to the workbench, close enough that I could smell her shampoo, citrus and rain. Her voice dropped. I keep thinking about what we did, she said. Not just the night, but everything after. What it means. And I don't think I can go back to pretending. I can't sit across from her again, laughing like none of this happened. I'm not asking you to. I know. She looked at me, eyes soft. That's the part that scares me. I leaned on the edge of the table, the wood cool under my palms. It wasn't just about sex. You know that, right? I know. It was about being seen. I know. She was trembling now, not visibly, but I could feel it in the way her voice cracked, in the way her eyes watered but refused to cry. I don't want to be the other woman, she whispered. I hate that title. I hate what it makes me. You're not the other woman, I said. You were always just the only one who actually saw me. She looked down. That's worse in a way. I reached out, touched her wrist. Just that. No more. We can't stay in this place, she said. The in-between. It'll kill us. I nodded. I know. We stood there for a moment, surrounded by tools and tension, by things we couldn't unmake. I felt something inside me settle, not peace, but inevitability. The old life was cracking, loud and slow, like a frozen lake thawing under the weight of spring. Amber wiped her cheek. I should go. You don't have to. Yes, she said, stepping back. I do. But she stopped in the doorway and turned. You're going to have to choose, Mark. Not for me. For yourself. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because I already knew. That night, Olivia came into the bedroom without her usual armor. No makeup. No wine. No forced laughter. She sat on the edge of the bed, back to me. You slept with her, she said. No question mark. Just a quiet verdict. I didn't speak. I always knew there was something between you two. You'd go stiff when I mentioned her. You'd look too long. You were never good at hiding it. Still, I said nothing. She turned then, her eyes wet but furious. Say it. Yes, I said. I did. The silence afterward was deafening. She nodded slowly, pressing her lips together. I was cruel. I pushed you. I made jokes I shouldn't have. You humiliated me, Olivia. For years. I know, she whispered. We stared at each other across the canyon we'd carved. I didn't cheat for revenge, I said. It wasn't about getting even. It was about not feeling invisible. And she made you feel seen. Yes. Olivia looked down, her hands wringing in her lap. I wanted to make you feel small so you wouldn't leave me. That worked, I said bitterly. Until it didn't. She wiped a tear. I don't know who we are anymore. Neither do I. And for the first time, neither of us tried to fix it. No desperate promises. No lies. Just the truth, sitting ugly and honest between us. She got up, walked to the door. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight, she said. I nodded. When she left, I didn't feel triumphant. Just hollow. But maybe that's where something new begins, when the lies finally stop, and all that's left is silence and choice. It started small. Olivia stopped mocking me. That was the first sign. She still made jokes about traffic, about politics, about that woman at yoga who wore too much perfume. But the sharp edge that used to aim squarely at me had dulled. The pointed remarks, the subtle public digs, the bedroom sarcasm she wore like perfume, they stopped. But not out of kindness. Out of suspicion. She had become a quiet observer, her eyes following me longer than they should, her silences too weighted, too timed. It was like she had become a security camera in her own home, watching for the cracks she couldn't see but knew were there. She never said Amber's name again, but I knew she was thinking it. I'd catch her watching me when I folded laundry, like I might be hiding evidence in the sleeves. She lingered near the bathroom when I showered, like she expected a message to come through the fogged glass. Once, I caught her staring at my phone while it charged, screen off, no notification, but her eyes were scanning like something might rise from it anyway. I said nothing, because there was nothing to say that would undo what had already been spoken in the silence between us. She tried different tactics. One morning, she made breakfast, eggs and toast, like she used to when we were newlyweds. She slid the plate in front of me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I thanked her, ate it, told her it was good. She nodded and sipped her coffee, then asked casually, "So you still talk to her?" I didn't look up. No, not even a message. No, right. She didn't believe me, but she didn't press. The shift didn't just happen between us, it happened in me. Something about Amber's honesty, the night in the candlelight, her voice trembling with both guilt and desire, had unlocked something. I no longer flinched when Olivia raised her voice. I no longer scrambled to patch the cracks with weak apologies or humor. I was calm, too calm, and it rattled her. Because control doesn't break with shouting. It breaks with indifference. One evening, Olivia came home from Pilates, her face flushed. She was wearing that clingy sports bra she used to model in front of the mirror when she wanted me to notice her. Tonight, she didn't even wait to shower. She came into the bedroom where I was reading and stood in front of me. She didn't say anything, just stood there. When I looked up, her eyes were on me, not soft, not seductive, but challenging. She stepped closer, placed her hands on my shoulders, and straddled me on the bed. Her fingers slid under my shirt, her mouth grazing my jaw. I didn't move. "Olivia," I said gently, "what are you doing?" She paused. "You know what I'm doing. This feels like a test." "It's not a test," she whispered. "It's a reminder." I pulled back, searching her face. "A reminder of what?" Her voice broke. "That you're mine." There it was. Not love. Not healing. Possession. She wasn't here for closeness. She was here to win. I took her wrists in my hands, not harshly, but firmly, and moved them off my body. "No," I said softly. Her eyes narrowed. "No, I'm not something you get to reclaim when you feel threatened." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she climbed off and stood at the edge of the bed, arms crossed. "You're punishing me," she said coldly. "I'm protecting what little self-worth I have left." She scoffed. "You get cheated on one time, emotionally, and suddenly you're Gandhi?" I stood then, facing her. "I was never trying to punish you, Olivia. I just stopped trying to be what you could laugh at without consequence." That one hit. She looked away. "So what now?" I didn't answer right away. I walked past her, into the hallway, letting the question sit there, because I wasn't sure yet. The next morning, she tried to act like nothing happened. She chatted about weekend plans, asked if I wanted to go to the farmer's market. She played a song in the kitchen and danced a little while making coffee. The performance was back. The Olivia who needed to feel in control, to feel wanted. She had stepped back onto the stage. But I'd stopped applauding. She noticed. That weekend, I ran into Amber. Not planned, not orchestrated. I was at the hardware store, buying sandpaper and light bulbs. She was in the garden section, looking at small potted herbs like she couldn't decide which one deserved to survive her kitchen windowsill. Our eyes met, and we both froze for a second. Then she smiled, sad and soft. Hey, hey. She looked tired, not in the physical way, but in the soul-worn, I'm carrying too much kind of way. Olivia hasn't texted me since the dinner, she said. I figured. She touched a basil leaf absently. She's probably deleted me from her life. She never deserved your loyalty. Amber looked up sharply and softened. You're different. Yeah. Better. Not sure about that. But I'm honest now. With myself, mostly. She nodded slowly. That's the hardest part. We didn't say more. Didn't touch. Didn't make plans. Just shared a moment between two people caught in the aftermath of honesty. When I left the store, I sat in the car for a while, watching the clouds shift overhead. Amber hadn't looked at me like a mistake. She'd looked at me like someone she remembered and maybe still missed. And for the first time, I felt the freedom of being seen without being possessed. Later that night, I passed Olivia in the hallway. She was on the phone with someone, laughing too loudly at something that probably wasn't funny. When she saw me, her voice dropped. She turned her back and walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. And just like that, the house wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage with two actors refusing to break character. But I was done performing. It happened on a Wednesday. The kind of day that doesn't warn you it's about to change your life. The kind of day where the coffee burns your tongue, the traffic's heavier than usual, and the sky looks like it can't decide between sun or storm. I was at work when it began, middle of a project, phone on silent, brain lost in numbers and budgets. When I stepped into the break room around noon, my phone was lit up with messages. 3 missed calls from Olivia. One from a number I didn't recognize. And then Amber. I told her. I couldn't keep it in anymore. I'm so sorry, Mark. My blood ran cold. Another text followed. Short. Final. She's on her way to you. I didn't have time to prepare. I didn't even have time to sit down. She came through the front doors of my office like a storm in heels, dressed impeccably, makeup perfect, but her expression? Ruin. Her eyes were wild. Red-rimmed. Desperate. I stepped into the hallway before she could reach the main desk. Olivia. Don't you dare, she snapped. Don't you say my name like nothing's happened. I glanced around. People were watching. A few heads popped up from cubicles, unsure whether this was drama or disaster. I motioned toward the side exit, trying to steer her away from the spotlight. She followed, heels echoing with every step. The alley outside was quiet, shielded from the wind. The only sounds were the hum of the building's AC units and the ticking of my pulse in my ears. She told me everything. Olivia said, arms crossed, body tight like a coil about to snap. Everything, Mark. I didn't speak. There was nothing to correct. Amber had already lit the fuse. How long, she demanded. I looked at her, really looked. The woman I'd once loved. The woman I'd endured. The woman who, in so many ways, had shaped my silence. Not long, I said, but long enough to see the truth. She flinched like I'd hit her. You humiliated me, she said, voice breaking. In front of everyone. Everyone. I tilted my head. You mean like you used to do to me? At dinner parties? In front of my friends? Your friends? Hell, even your family? That was different. No, I said quietly. It wasn't. She stepped back, shaking her head. You don't get to flip this on me. You cheated, Mark. With my best friend. I cheated, I said, the word tasting bitter. After years of being the punchline. After being ignored, dismissed, mocked like it was foreplay. That's not an excuse. I'm not giving you one, I replied. I'm just giving you the full story. She crossed her arms tighter, lips trembling. So what now? You leave me for her? You ride off into the sunset? I don't know, I said honestly. This wasn't about trading one life for another. It was about finally waking up. She stared at me, eyes glassy. I was angry. I said things to hurt you, but I never thought you'd do this. You thought I'd just keep taking it, I said. And honestly, so did I. Her expression cracked then. The anger, the pride, the arrogance. All of it collapsed into something else. Something raw. I did love you, she whispered. I believe you, I said. But I don't think you respected me. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Do you love her? She asked finally. I paused. Then, I think I could. And that, more than anything, broke her. She covered her mouth, turned away like she couldn't bear to look at me. I need to go, she said. I won't stop you. She hesitated in the doorway. I never thought you'd be the one to do this. And I never thought you'd be the one who'd push me to it. The door clicked behind her, and I stood in the quiet alley, letting the truth settle like dust after demolition. That night, she didn't come home. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Her clothes were still in the closet, her perfume still on the bathroom counter, but the air was different. Lighter. Emptier. I didn't call her. Didn't text Amber, either. The silence wasn't punishment. It was transition. I made myself a drink. Sat on the back porch. The night air was cool, the sky heavy with stars. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A child laughed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel ashamed. I thought about how many dinners I'd sat through, smiling while Olivia dismantled me in front of our friends. How many nights I'd stared at the ceiling, wondering if I was still a man or just her shadow. How many smiles I'd faked. How many laughs I'd swallowed. Amber hadn't saved me. She'd reminded me I was worth saving. The next morning, there was an envelope on the kitchen table. Olivia's handwriting. Slanted, rushed. Inside was a note. Mark, you hurt me. More than I can explain. But maybe that's what I deserved. I don't know who we are anymore. Maybe we were always pretending. Maybe I just got good at forgetting what love is supposed to feel like. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while. Don't contact me. If you want to talk about separation, you know how to find me. Oh, I folded the note. Sat with it in my hands. Then I exhaled. Not relief. Not grief. Just release. The performance was over. The crowd had left the theater. The lights were down. And all that remained was the quiet truth between us. The fallout came fast. 3 days after Olivia left, the texts started rolling in. Friends, co-workers, even her cousin Dana, who'd never liked me to begin with. Heard what happened. If you need to talk. Olivia's been saying some crazy stuff. Want to set the record straight? Damn, man. I didn't know you had it in you. At first, I ignored them. I wasn't interested in defending myself. I wasn't interested in feeding the fire. But Olivia made sure there was a fire. She went public, not with a Facebook post or anything that obvious. No, her method was quieter, more surgical. A few dramatic retellings over drinks with mutual friends, a tearful confession to someone at her job who had no business knowing our business, a just between us message to a friend she knew would spread it. And just like that, I was cast as the villain in her story. The cold husband. The statue. The one who couldn't satisfy her, who pushed her into bitterness. The man who cheated with her best friend after years of emotional distance. It wasn't a lie, not completely. But it wasn't the truth either. The truth was messy, human, inconvenient. And most people weren't interested in that version. Amber called me the day the first wave hit. I think I made things worse, she said. No, I told her. You just brought it to light. She's telling people I seduced you. That I waited for the perfect moment to destroy your marriage. I sighed. Let her. The people who matter already know what she's like. But I still feel toxic, Amber admitted. You're not. You were honest. She wasn't ready for that. Amber didn't reply at first. Then, softly, I think I need to leave town for a bit. I felt it in my chest, that hollow sensation, like a door closing. But I understood. You should, I said. Get out. Breathe. I wasn't expecting to lose everything, she whispered. Not like this. You didn't lose everything, Amber. Just the parts that were never yours to begin with. She didn't cry, but I could feel her grief through the silence. I'm sorry, she said. I'm not, I replied. Just be safe. And let me know when you land. I will. She left 2 days later. Moved back to her parents' place upstate. Just for a while, she said. But we both knew just for a while could mean forever. And me? I stayed. I stayed in the house Olivia and I bought 6 years ago. The one with the stone path she never liked and the kitchen island she insisted on. I stayed in the life I'd built, slowly dismantling it piece by piece. The hardest part wasn't being alone. It was discovering how peaceful alone could be. I filed for divorce. Olivia didn't contest it. She signed the papers and returned them without a note, without a phone call. Just a clean signature in black ink. Like a final period at the end of a very long, very bitter sentence. There was no screaming match. No last confession. No desperate plea. Just quiet. The day the divorce was finalized, I sat on the front porch with a glass of whiskey. It was late afternoon. The sun had started to dip, casting long shadows over the yard Olivia used to complain about mowing. I watched a pair of birds hop along the fence, listened to the wind whisper through the trees. And I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. Stillness. No tension. No performance. No waiting for the next jab to come from across the dinner table. Just stillness. I thought about all the times I'd laughed at Olivia's jokes because I didn't want to embarrass her. All the times I'd let her ridicule me in public and played along to avoid making a scene. All the birthdays, holidays, weekends where I'd swallowed myself just to keep the peace. And now? Now there was real peace. Not the kind built on silence, but the kind built on truth. I wasn't proud of everything I'd done, but I wasn't ashamed anymore, either. A week later, I started boxing up her things. Not out of spite, not to erase her, just because it was time. The guest room held the dresses she never wore, the shoes she'd bought on impulse and mocked me for not noticing. The bathroom still smelled faintly of her vanilla body wash. The mirror still had her fingerprints in the corners. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just folded, packed, labeled. Quietly. At the bottom of her nightstand drawer, I found the necklace I gave her for our 3rd anniversary. The one with the tiny sapphire, the one she told her friends was a little underwhelming but sweet. I held it for a long moment. Then I set it in the donation box. People eventually stopped talking. The scandal faded. Olivia moved on, or at least pretended to. I heard from a mutual friend that she was seeing someone new. Someone older. Wealthier. Someone she could respect, apparently. Good for her. Amber stayed away. She texted once, around Thanksgiving. Just a simple, "Hope you're okay. I think about you." I replied, "I'm getting there. I think about you too." That was it. We didn't try to revive anything. Some things aren't meant to be continued. Some stories end halfway through their second act, not because the love wasn't real, but because it was tied to a moment, to a particular kind of truth that only exists inside brokenness. Amber reminded me who I was. Olivia reminded me who I refused to be anymore. And now, for the first time in a long time, I was just me. Not the statue. Not the joke. Just the man sitting alone on a porch, no longer waiting for laughter that never felt kind. Months passed. The house sold faster than I expected. The new owners were a younger couple, smiling, bright-eyed, excited about the granite countertops and the great space for entertaining. I didn't tell them how many quiet wars had been fought in those rooms. Some ghosts don't haunt. They just sit quietly and let go. I moved to the coast. A small town. Walkable. Slower. Nothing flashy. Just sand, wind, and a constant whisper of waves brushing against the shore. I found a small cottage with peeling paint, a crooked fence, and just enough room for solitude. I didn't bring much with me. Just a few clothes. Some tools. My books. And a photo of myself from years ago, before Olivia, before the weight of being not enough started showing in my posture. I pinned that photo above my writing desk, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder, that man still lived in me. One morning in early spring, I walked the beach trail after coffee, as I had most days since settling in. I wasn't expecting anyone. That's usually when life decides to surprise you. She was sitting on the old bench near the dunes. Amber. Her hair was longer, sun-kissed at the tips. She wore a loose sweater, faded jeans, and that silver necklace I always remembered. The one she'd once said felt like an anchor and a map. When she saw me, she stood slowly. No theatrics. No tension. Just two people with history wrapped around them like a shared coat. I didn't ask how she found me. She didn't offer it. We just stared for a moment, and I could see it. Time had passed, but the ache hadn't changed shape, just softened at the edges. "I didn't know if I should come," she said finally. "I didn't know if you would." I almost didn't. "What changed?" She looked past me toward the ocean. "I stopped hoping you'd reach out. Then I started wondering why that mattered so much." I sat on the bench beside her. The wind tugged gently at her sleeves. "I didn't reach out," I said, "because I wasn't sure what part of me wanted to." She nodded. "And now? Now? I think I just want to tell the truth." She smiled faintly. "Okay." I turned to her. "I missed you. Not just what we had, but who I was when I was with you." Her eyes glistened. "You weren't invisible." "I know. I saw you. Every version." I nodded. "And I saw you too." We sat in silence for a while. The kind that didn't ache. She pulled something from her bag. A folded napkin, yellowed at the edges. She handed it to me. I unfolded it. Scrawled in ink, faint but legible, was a line. "You didn't deserve that." I looked up at her. "I wrote it that night," she said. "At the restaurant. The night of the joke. I didn't send it right away. I just kept it." I traced the ink with my thumb. It changed everything. It broke everything. Sometimes things need to break, I said. So you know where the cracks really were. She looked at me, and there it was. The same look she gave me across the dinner table that night. Olivia turned me into a punchline. The look that said, I see you. Even now. You look lighter, she said. I feel lighter. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. We didn't talk about love or reconciliation. We didn't pretend we were the same people who'd made all those impossible choices. Instead, we just sat, breathing, present. As the sun lowered toward the horizon, we walked together toward the water, not holding hands, just side by side. When we reached the edge of the surf, Amber bent to pick up a piece of sea glass, green, worn smooth by time and tide. She held it up to the sun. Beautiful, I said. She glanced at me. It used to be broken. So did we, I said. Amber smiled, slipping the glass into her pocket. Do you think you'll ever go back? To what? To who you were before her. I shook my head. No, but I don't think I need to. She nodded. Good. That night, I sat alone on the porch, another glass of whiskey in hand, and thought about Olivia. Not with anger, not with longing, just with clarity. I remembered the joke, the way the table erupted, the way she laughed as she poured herself another glass of wine, not realizing she had lit the match that would burn down her own house. I remembered how I smiled through it, how I let it happen, how I played my part. But more than anything, I remembered Amber's eyes, steady, unsmiling, catching mine in the middle of that wildfire. That look had changed everything, not because it promised love, but because it reminded me I was still there, whole, human, worthy of more. The man everyone laughed at became the one thing they couldn't forget, not because he shouted back, not because he sought revenge, but because, when it finally mattered, he chose to be seen. And in the end, that made all the difference.